Let's go. Welcome back to Ryzo Invest. In today's video, we're going to be talking about S&P 500, why the S&P 500 is going to crash very soon, and we can see here that the balance sheet is starting to fall. We can see inflation staying quite high, and we can see that Warren Buffett, the Berkshire Capital, is having a $397 billion worth of cash pile that they're going to implement very soon. I'm going to be going through with you guys why I am so bullish on Bitcoin, even though I believe that the S&P 500 is going to crash. You can see that I have an $11.7 million trade here that is currently 376k in profit. Okay, it's going to be a very important video, so do watch it to the very end. And for those of you who want to join the mentorship group down below to have access to the bull market strategy guide, the 100x altcoin watchlist, as well as the exclusive inner circle, do join Ryzo Academy down below at ryzoinvest.com. Okay, we have limited spots. Currently, we have 2 spaces open. Once these 2 spaces are filled up, the Ryzo Academy group will be closed. Alright, so where are we on the S&P 500? The S&P 500 is currently trading at about 7.2k, looking very bullish. First up, I want to say that the S&P 500 can go higher, and I do believe that it will go higher up until the bearish divergence plays off. We can see that for the past 4 years, ever since October 2022, we have not revisited this red line over here, which is a 200-week moving average. We all know that the S&P 500 kind of have this up-only mindset because of technological advancements, because of AI, because of the Max 7, and we can see that the S&P 500 is going higher and higher. But we do know that through the history of the S&P 500, it always revisits the 200-week moving average. As of yet, it has not visited the 200-week moving average since October of 2022, and this puts us around the 3.5 to 4 year mark. At the current point in time, we can see that we are looking bullish on the S&P 500, as you can see over here, with higher highs and higher lows. However, what are you seeing on the weekly time frame? We are seeing a very clear Class A bearish divergence. You can see that the RSI is actually getting lower in terms of its highs. So what does this tell you? This tells you that as the price action goes higher, as the price of S&P goes higher and higher, 8,000, 9,000, you are seeing a massive bearish divergence play off. And what this means is that the price of S&P 500 can go higher, but eventually it is going to top, and we are going to have a massive crash, likely to this 6k region, or potentially down here to this area of consolidation. And this is exactly where the S&P 500 will actually reset. And therefore, I need to warn you guys to be very careful with the market at this point in time, because what we know is that interest rate is still relatively high. In fact, in March over here, you can see that the CPI is actually 3.3%. The Fed Reserve has not effectively been dovish, right? We are still in the era where the rates are still high, 3+%. And you can see that the balance sheet is effectively getting shrunken by the year itself. In the COVID period, the balance sheet actually almost doubled from 3.8 trillion all the way to about $9 trillion over here. And you can see that currently we have started to see the balance sheet shrink in size from 8 trillion to about 6 trillion, 7 trillion. This means that the amount of liquidity in the market is starting to decrease. And this is exactly why I think that Warren Buffett is actually holding on to so much cash. I think that he is actually waiting for this mega crash in terms of the S&P 500. And I think that the entire market is going to crash very hard. Okay, a lot of people are going to lose a lot of money. However, I do believe that this is going to be temporary, and that it's going to be a quick V-shaped recovery before our next new high. However, I must say that a lot of this liquidity is going to be translated into Bitcoin because of the geopolitical tension at this point in time. The current latest news states that the Iran war is still going full-fledged, right? And the market has not seen the full impact. For those of you who drive cars, you guys know that the oil prices are going very high. In fact, it's high to the point where just average people are finding it hard to pump their petrol or pump their gas, and finding it hard to carry out their activities of daily living, right? And at this point in time, given how the geopolitical tension is still at the sky high level, oil prices are going higher, inflation is not really coming down much, and we can see that the balance sheet is starting to shrink. My thesis is that all this liquidity pumped to the market will actually reverse, and what will happen is that all this liquidity will pump into a safe haven assets like gold, assets like Bitcoin, and these are the assets that are going to capture all this liquidity. And therefore, I am long Bitcoin at this point in time. Given the fact that MicroStrategy is buying up billions of Bitcoin every single month, you can see that I entered here at 75k, is currently trading at about 78k, and I'm already 380k in profit. I believe that this is the near innings of the end of the bull market in terms of the traditional finance market. We're going to see that the Iran war is going to decimate this entire high on the S&P 500. We're going to see the balance sheet shrink even further, and that is 100% confirmed. And hopefully, this inflation will start to come down as well. Once all this is settled, I believe that the S&P 500 can then reverse back even higher. However, until that occurs, I believe that buying at any point in time from now is a risk to take. The reason is because nobody knows when the S&P 500 will top. However, the probability of you retracing back down past whatever level you buy at this point in time is very, very high. And therefore, if you're not in the traditional finance market at this point in time, do consider pivoting into Bitcoin as a safe haven asset versus actually stocking up your cash pile as what Warren Buffett actually does over here, and then aim to enter when the market has retraced. Now, you can be saying that, hey, we never know when the market will retrace, and that is very true, but the market is already showing you signs. Right here, the RSI has been forming for over 2 to 3 years, where the RSI divergence shows that the market participants are actually losing their buying pressure. People are unable to afford stocks, unable to afford commodities, unable to afford their daily living necessities at this point in time. You have to be very, very careful with the market. You have to watch out for this bearish divergence to play out, and you have to watch for how this geopolitical tension actually plays out, because all it takes is for the war to worsen, propagate even further. The confidence will lose out over here. People will pull out their money, and what you actually see is that this liquidity is not enough to hold up the market, and we're going to crash very, very badly. So I hope that this video will be able to help you guys understand a bit more as to what is going on. If I were you guys, I would not enter the traditional finance market. In fact, I would enter the Bitcoin market and long Bitcoin at this point in time, which is what you are seeing in my live trade over here. If you have any questions, do drop it in the comment section down below. And don't forget, if you do want to join the mentorship group, you can join down below at ryzoinvest.com. It is a one-time payment for lifetime access, and you have full access to the 100x altcoin watch list, the bull market strategy guide, as well as the exclusive inner circle. Again, last 2 slots. If you want to join, do join down below. And as always, invest safe.